Welcome to Summer School. This is another episode related to our Summer School series. And today, what I would like to talk about is leadership and the quality of leadership. I get asked a lot why I focus so much and why I care so much about leadership and the quality of leaders in organizations. And quite frankly, I ask myself that question too. Why am I so passionate about leadership and why do I focus so much on leadership? And today I'm going to explore with you why that is. I recently came across a report that I have not been able to get out of my head, and it's a study that was conducted by the Workforce Institute at UKG. They found that the role managers play in influencing their employees' state of mind is on par or equivalent to a spouse or partner. Let me just say that again. The role that managers play in influencing their employees' state of mind is on par with a spouse or a partner. In fact, managers impact employees' mental health more than both doctors and therapists, according to the study. Whoa. See why I can't get this out of my head? Let me share another study with you I recently came across. A meta-analysis of 57 different studies published in the Leadership Quarterly found the negative impact created by a bad boss far outweighs the positive impact of a good boss. I mean, that's common sense. Not surprisingly, there's a high correlation between the impact of a leader on employee performance. One study, which tracked abusive leadership from men's basketball coaches, found that exposure to abusive leadership influenced both the trajectory of task performance and psychological aggression over the players' NBA careers. These are men who went from college basketball to the NBA. Those with abusive coaches performed at a lower level and had more technical fouls than players who were not. And are you ready for this? The impact lingered for as long as 10 years. The Gallup organization has found through their extensive research that managers or leaders account for 70% of the variance in employee engagement scores across business units. And I would need a whole separate podcast to talk about the impact that employee engagement has on your business, but let me just throw out a few quickies for you. Engagement has an impact on not only just productivity, but which is actually a 17% higher level of productivity if you have high engagement. But thinking about businesses that are in the top engagement quartile of Gallup's research, they have found these business units in the top engagement quartile of Gallup studies have 21% higher profitability, 10% higher customer ratings, 41% lower absenteeism, 70% fewer safety incidents, 70% fewer safety incidents, 28% less shrinkage, 59% less turnover, and 20% higher sales. These are the impacts that you get out of high levels of engagement. And in case I haven't hooked you yet, be aware that why I'm talking about this as it relates to leaders is that 1 in 2 employees have left their job to get away from their manager at some point in their career. And employees who are supervised by highly engaged leaders are 59% to be more engaged than those supervised by actively disengaged leaders. So we know engagement is important to the business, and we now know that leaders account for 70% of an employee's level of engagement. When I created my business plan, I was very intentional about focusing my business on what I knew how to do best, what I was the best at, what I was the most passionate about, and where there was a need. And so the majority of my work is spent on leadership, the quality of leadership, and how to best develop leaders. And I have to tell you that it's also what I'm most passionate about, leadership and culture, and those two go hand in hand. Spending 20 years in the corporate world, I was exposed to many different types of leaders and saw firsthand the impact and influence that leaders had, both positive and negative. And I experienced what it was like to work for amazing leaders, people who lifted me up, gave me limitless opportunities, believed in me, challenged me, brought out the best in me. And then I also worked for people who shut me down, made me feel incompetent, worthless. And that resulted in me doing the bare minimum and just trying to survive and outlast them. I remember one day I had had enough of my boss's boss yelling at me. My boss was out of town and I had a meeting with her boss that afternoon. And I looked at one of the other leaders in the department and I said, if she yells at me one more time today, I am taking my badge, I'm putting it on her desk, and I'm walking out the door. Now, thank goodness she didn't yell at me because I certainly couldn't afford to go without a paycheck or benefits. But after that day, I realized I had a decision to make. I could quit my job. I could try to find a different job in the company in a different department, or I could outlast this woman. And the average tenure in her role was about 2 years. There was a lot of turnover in that role. And she'd been there for about 2.5 years. So I decided she was about due and I would just try to outlast her. And I did. And thankfully, I moved on to a much better boss, one that did not leave people crying in the bathroom on a daily basis. Speaking of, just curious, what quality of work do you think people are doing when they spend several minutes a day crying in the bathroom? How much productivity do you think you're getting out of an employee like that? Not the highest levels of engagement. So I want you to take a minute and think about the worst boss you've ever had. The worst boss. We all have those stories. And what made them so terrible? How did their behavior impact you? And is their behavior still impacting you, even if you don't work for them anymore? And if you're a leader, are you demonstrating any of these behaviors yourself? Here's the deal. I firmly believe that no one goes into a leadership role planning on or hoping to be a bad leader. I've literally never heard someone say that they aspire to be a terrible leader or like, I really hope that I ruin someone's life today as a leader. Yet, not a day goes by that I don't hear someone telling me how toxic and terrible their leader is. So what's going on? We have a gap here because if no one going into a leadership role aspires to be a bad leader, or hopes to be a bad leader and wants to have a positive impact. Yet, we have frequently people saying, I work for a terrible leader. We've got a disconnect here. So a few things that I think cause this. Number one, leadership is a skill, but it's not taught or prioritized the way other skills are. Think about all of the years we go through school learning about math and science and reading and history, which are all very important things we need to know about so that we can be productive members of society. But also, where are the classes that teach us how to be a leader? And the reason that matters is because based on Gallup's research, only 1 in 10 people actually have a natural talent for leading people. 1 in 10. So if we're not taught how to be a leader, and only 1 in 10 of us have the natural talent for doing it, then how do we learn how to lead other people effectively? And also think about how most people end up in people leadership roles. Someone's doing a really good job at a technical skill, and someone else decides that they should now be the leader of people who do that skill. Like, wow, this person is such a good salesperson. Let's put them in charge of all of our salespeople. But the skill set that's required to be a successful salesperson is not necessarily the same skill set that's required to be a successful sales leader. Just like the skills that are needed to be a great engineer do not always equate to the skills required of successfully leading a team of engineers. Additionally, many employees feel like the only way they can get a pay raise is to go into a leadership role. So it's not like they necessarily feel it's their life's mission to lead other people. They might just be doing it because they feel like that's the path to a pay raise. Because let's be honest, while leading others can be an incredibly rewarding and filling role, it is also not an easy one. People are hard, especially when you have more than one person that you're interacting with on your team. So what do we do about all of this? First of all, if you are a business owner, a business executive, a leader who has the ability to influence the results and success of your business unit, you need to understand the connection between the quality of your leaders and the bottom line. This is not a frou-frou, woo-woo, nice to have when the bottom line is healthy. This is a have to have, especially when you're going through financial constraints. Based on what we've just talked about here, recognize that your leaders impact your employees' mental health, engagement levels, absenteeism, productivity, and turnover. Turnover. Do y'all have turnover? People leaving the company? Huge impact. People leave people, not companies. How many people have left your company this year? How many people have left your department this year? How many people have left your team this year? The estimate for the cost of turnover is about 33% of an employee's annual salary. Quite frankly, I think that number might be a little low. 33% of your employee's annual salary. So if you have an employee making $40,000 a year, that's $13,000, $1,200 down the drain. What if they're making $100,000 a year? We're getting into some big numbers here. Okay. So what else can we do? Once we recognize, I need to pay attention to this, the quality of my leaders impacts the results that we get in this company. Teach leadership skills. Invest in your leaders. Show them what the expectations are and manage performance based on the quality of leadership. Role model the behaviors that you're looking for. We have to start rewarding people for more than just operational or business results, or we're not going to move the needle here. How are your leaders successfully living out the culture that you've created, the values that you espouse? How are they lifting others up, creating success for other people in the organization? And are they being rewarded for that? Or do they just get rewarded when they hit their numbers or don't? There needs to be a balance there. So set the expectation, communicate clearly what those leadership behaviors look like, and teach them how to do it. Remember that really we are not exposed to a lot of formal education around leadership. I have a management degree, and it wasn't until I got to college until I started actually going through courses related to leadership. And it was just because that was my major. Think about all of the other majors in school where leadership's probably not even a class that gets taught at all. So invest in your leaders, teach them, assess the quality of your leadership. Are you soliciting feedback on multiple levels within the organization? I can't tell you how many times I talk to the C-suite and they will tell me how great everything is. Oh, yes, everyone here knows our values. Oh, yes, everyone here knows our mission. Oh, yes, we're all marching to the same beat of the drum. And then when I go talk to employees at other levels of the organization, I get a totally different story. We have some misalignment here. So are you actually assessing the quality of your leadership? Are you soliciting feedback on multiple levels within the organization? And how are you measuring the quality of your leadership? Are you giving feedback to your leaders on the quality of their leadership? And are you asking your leaders to solicit feedback for themselves? If you're a leader, you have to be aware of potential blind spots that you might have. Think about what kind of an impact you want to have on others and then solicit feedback. You can engage in a 360, hire a coach. Whether your company will pay for it or not, I promise you it's worth the investment because it is going to impact your career success. So why do I care so much about the quality of leadership? Why is my business so focused on developing leaders? Why do I have a podcast devoted to leadership? Because leaders are in a position of tremendous influence and impact. And that influence and impact can be positive or negative. Leaders have a ripple effect in an organization. And I can't help but think about the amazing things that can happen inside an organization if we have better, stronger, more equipped leaders at the helm.